Hello, wrestling fans. This is the PWZ podcast. I am Rick Del Santo, your host. We've got a great episode here today. Our special guest is Carmine Azzato, former member of Demolition known as Blast. In the 1990s, after Axe had left the WWF, he started working shows with Tommy D and other independents and discovered Carmine and started teaming up with him all over the independents. They went all over the world as the new Demolition. Carmine has a very interesting career, as you will find out here in this episode. We talk about Lance Von Erich. We talk about Kamala. We talk about some promoters all over here in the northeastern part of the United States, plus so much more. It's such a great conversation. I had a lot of fun talking to Carmine and love to have him back sometime in the future. But before we get to that interview, I do want to mention a couple things. There's a couple really great independent shows coming up here in the Connecticut area. Let's see, Saturday, April 8th, Blood, Sweat, and Tears presents Elevate at the District Athletic Club in New Haven, 470 James Street, New Haven, Connecticut. Matches include Clara Carreras taking on Big Juicy. The main event versus Uptown Boys versus The Haven in a three-way tag team war. Dan the Man takes on Montekia. That's going to be a good match. I'm looking forward to that one. Brad Baylor taking on Mr. James. Also, Little Mean Kathleen and J.C. Cruz, and Lucas Chase defends the BST title against Matthias. Saturday, April 22nd, Tough and Talented returns to Torrington, Connecticut. Included in this, the new 2TW title holder, Elijah Six, takes on Little Greatness, the former champion that he won it from this past week. And then, of course, the 2023 Big Jim Cup winner, Stevie Legend. The 2TW United States title, Clipper Jones is champion, taking on Landon Hale. Stepdad's taking on Hustle and Muscle. That's going to be a good match right there. A 2TW undisputed champion, my good pal, Bull Dread, taking on Brute Van Slyke. 2TW Ladies Championship, Delilah Hayden taking on Arena Black, and special challenge Randy Shawn taking on Ryan Frost. And then a number one contenders match for the United States Championship, Jamar Justice taking on Ken Powers, Cubes, and Eric Black. And then there's a number one contenders tag team gauntlet match, the Murderers versus Black and Yellow versus Untitled Through Hatred versus Buff Inc., Revolutionary Scale, plus Chimera. All this, plus much, much more. That's going to be at the 265 main. That's going to be in Torrington, Connecticut, at the Columbia Club. You can check it here for more details. Also, one more show, Friday, April 28th. Coliseum Pro Wrestling presents Opportunity for Success 2. 265 Main Street, West Haven, Connecticut. No matches or talent has been announced, but I just want to get that out there again because I love Coliseum Pro Wrestling, and I think they run a really good show. The last show that they had was an absolute banger from beginning to end. It was a fantastic show. Had a lot of fun with that. Couple other things, one more thing I should say. If you've been paying attention to social media, whether it be mine or Bull Dreads, you can see that we are working on a documentary of the next 3 years. Bull Dread will be retiring in the next 3 years. So we're going to be documenting and filming, etc. And we'll be conducting interviews based on the last 3 years of his career and going through lots of footage. It's something that I'm really looking forward to and something I'm very proud to be a part of, and very honored as well. We've had some great conversations over the last few days, and I'm just looking forward to bringing it out to the public when this is finished. So keep an eye out for that. There's going to be more. I'll probably be updating you on the progress of that. Bull Dread is going to be coming back on here really soon, actually. We're going to be talking about the movie again soon. I'm going to get us to our interview with Carmine Azzato, Demolition Blast. But before we get to that, please check this out.
Hey, Hey, this is the one-man gold mine, the one-man enterprise of professional wrestling and all entertainment, Flynn Hendricks. And you better believe when I'm looking for a good podcast to listen to, I go to my own. I go to the I Know You Hear Me podcast hosted by me, Flynn Hendricks. That is such a fresh perspective for how you should look at life, too. I love that. And then when I'm feeling spooky, I go to my other podcast, Tales from the Haunt, where I want my head shoved inside a 15-pound silicone mask. More. I want to have a bucket of sweat coming off me at the end of the night than just Jeff.
Dogs don't lay eggs, Flynn.
I hate you so much. Talk to other scare actors about what it takes to get into the world of scare acting. So if you're curious about how people became professional wrestlers, actors, prioritized their mental health, became entrepreneurs, avoided burnout, or got into scare acting, you need to go check out I Know You Hear Me and Tales from the Haunt, available on all podcasting platforms. And I know you hear me.
Tracy Smothers, Harley Race, Tim Storm, Bushwhacker Luke, Bobby Fulton. The Pro Wrestling Vault, Volume 1, Bill Dundee, Supermex Hernandez, C.W. Anderson, Ricky Morton, Sir Mo, and many others share their stories of determination, triumph, and sorrow. Get your book today at Russellville.com or at Amazon.com. Russellville, it's where wrestling lives.
All right, everybody, welcome to the PWZ podcast. I am Rick Del Santo, and joining me today is former Demolition Blast, Carmine Azzato. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Rick?
I am fantastic. I'm very happy to have you here, as I got to see you quite a bit as a kid growing up. Well, I guess I should say teenager. So
as a teenager, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. I saw you, I guess, there you go. You got a little bright there, but you got to work for Eddie Mansfield in the IWF. I saw you a bit, right? And yes. Of course the Savoldis we just mentioned before going on here. But I want to talk about how you got interested in professional wrestling.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, I got hurt playing high school football, so I really wasn't interested in wrestling. So basically, wrestling found me. Okay. I got hurt in my junior year. Was so focused on going into the NFL, playing football for the Giants. That was my end-all goal. And so as I started growing and getting bigger, I was 6'5" as a junior, about 320 pounds. I was playing defensive tackle, and it was the last practice before our last game of the season. So Friday night, all the guys are on the field, and the coach had an idea. He said, the Refrigerator Perry back in the day with the Chicago Bears. Yep. He said, we're going to do that with you. My nickname in high school was the Mountain Man. And so it was kind of cool that they were going to take me and turn me around on the offense, and I would run the ball in for a touchdown. So practiced a few plays, scrimmage, and I guess one of my teammates, the defensive people, were getting upset. They couldn't stop me. I was just blowing through the line. I was fast. I was tall. I was pretty big, pretty built. And all of a sudden, I heard the whistle blow, plays over. I'm in the end zone. I go to get up, turn, boom, chop blocked by one of my teammates. And it just compound fractured, bone broke, came through the skin. And, it was the 80s, early, mid-80s. So, the sports medicine wasn't as advanced.
Right.
So I just went into a downward spiral of depression. And my football career was, unbeknownst to me, I would never play football again. So the following year, my senior year, that's when the World Wrestling Federation came to my school through Tommy D. So Tommy D was very close with the Vince McMahon Sr. Mm-hmm. And so he would get all the guys, Andre the Giant, Ken Patera, all these, the Killer Bees. So they were going to do a football fundraiser for school on Staten Island. I went to Wagner High School. So, me, I'm going through this depression. I'm trying to take my own life. I just can't see a future. And then all of a sudden, they have this wrestling ring on our field on a Saturday afternoon. And my coach, Coach Paterzo, said, all the football players are going to do, we're going to walk the wrestlers. Andre the Giant, all these guys. We're going to walk them to the ring, get their gear, walk back. That's it. We're just kind of escorts. And so I'm just in my own world. And then here comes one of the promoters from the WWF comes up to me and asked me if I want to be a pro wrestler. They saw my size. And I was so angry I didn't even understand what was happening, but I was so mad because I'm thinking, I told the guy, I don't even remember, I said, "Are you blind?" He's offering me an opportunity of a lifetime, and I'm saying, "Are you blind? Can you not see?" He goes, "Kid, I don't understand what you're talking about." I said, "I have a cane, I have a walking boot. You're asking me if I want to be a pro wrestler." So then he said, "You're going to heal, and then what? What's going to be your excuse after you heal?" And I said, "Man, all right, I'll take the challenge." And lo and behold, Johnny Rods was on the show. He introduced me to Unbreakable Johnny Rods. And as soon as I was cleared for any kind of activity, he was in East New York. It was before he even was at the Gleason's.
Oh, Gleason's, yep.
So before he was at Gleason's, we were in East New York, and that's where I went there, and man, just started training and kind of gave me new life. So yeah, I was pretty excited.
You weren't a fan at all growing up or any of that?
I mean, I watched it because my mother liked it, and
Right.
my father liked it, the family liked it, so I wasn't like a real fan. And then as I
Right.
started watching it, once I got into it, I started watching it. So, and I was really like intently watching it, because now I'm like, it's like study films in football. I had the
Right.
mentality of football, so I'm like, let me watch. And that's when they started the Saturday night's main event. And but I fell in love with Roddy Piper, so I was like, I love
One of
this
the
guy. I want to be like that guy.
yeah, one of the greatest of all time. Yeah.
Forget it. I don't think there's anybody that'll ever be like that ever again.
No,
So,
no. It was such a different time period too, because it's like I don't think that those guys, there's nobody since could match anybody like that. You know what I mean?
no.
In the last like almost 40 years. I've been watching almost 40 years, and it's there's nobody like Piper or Hogan or Orndorff or any of those guys. I mean, we've had some great guys, but that was like pure fire.
Yeah, and even as I started wrestling, I got the snot beat out of me. I was the Annihilator at first, and one of the matches I remember, it was me and this other guy that they teamed me up with against The Undertaker and Sid Vicious, the Twin Towers. And man, remember when they were the Twin Towers?
That was in WCW or NWA at the time.
Yeah, and
right?
they were still highlighting on independent, I mean, it was all about money back in the day. They didn't care. So,
right.
So they put us in there, and I got my family, and we just got the snot beat out of us. I mean, it was horrible. My mother's like, "You sure you want this?" I'm like, "I don't know, but I loved it." But Sid Vicious was crazy, and what's his Undertaker?
Mark, yeah,
Mark. He was a sweetheart from day one. Just a good guy. So.
Yeah. That was probably, I think, 1989 you're probably referring to, roughly.
Yeah, it was probably 89, because I started in 80. Let's see. Yeah, 88, I had my first match, so it was 89. I was new. I was like still the Annihilator, so it was crazy. And I got annihilated.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
What was that early Annihilator gimmick like for people that might not be aware?
Actually, I have some old pictures, I'll have to send it to you another time, but it was kind of a cross between Zorro and the Undertaker. I wore a real long trench coat. I wore kind of like a leather brimmed hat, and just had a singlet with I always wore like biker like jeans, and then I had like long boots right under my knee, so they were like calf high, really high. They were above the calf. So kind of, I don't know what I was going for,
Sounds like maybe a biker type gimmick.
Maybe a biker,
maybe. Yeah.
I wasn't creative, man. I found Annihilate in the dictionary. When Johnny Rod said you got to have a gimmick, you have to have a name, I went right to my dictionary. I started in A's. I got all the way to Annihilate. I go, man, I could be the Annihilator. That was it. No creativity. I wanted to be a football player. There was not a creative bone in my body. So,
what were your early matches like? Do you remember anything that early? So, and who it might have been against from that time period?
Well, I mean, from Jimmy Superfly Snuka was always a guy that I was wrestling with and against. But Greg the Hammer Valentine, Hercules Hernandez, man, there was just so many of them, because even the Rougeau brothers, everybody came through. It seemed like Universal Wrestling Superstars was like a landing place. And then I know Saboldi's, and then a lot of people would grab that talent. A lot of people would actually come to the shows kind of scouting these guys, getting their phone numbers and offer them other independent opportunities. So it was pretty awesome.
I remember the Universal Wrestling Superstars used to be covered in some of the magazines quite frequently because I guess
Yeah.
that they were kind of one of the top indies in the Northeast, out
Yeah.
of the New York area, I think,
Oh,
at the
yeah.
time. So,
Yeah. So
I
I
think,
went for, yeah, good.
well, I think Orndorff was like a real top guy there for a while before he made
Well,
his big comeback, I think.
yep. Kevin Sullivan,
Yep.
the Maniac, Kamala, just a lot of those guys. Jake the Snake Roberts, man, all of them. Brutus Barber Beefcake, Honky Tonk Man. So we had a lot of. It was so good for us being the young. I was the young kid in the older locker room, so it
Right.
always felt like. And I wrestled even the Rockstead, so all
Rocky
those guys.
Johnson.
Tony Atlas came. It was so. Tony Atlas was like a staple. Even I have magazines that show the ratings of UWS. I was always like, I moved all the way up, but not to one. But Tony Atlas, to see my name in the list, like Brooklyn Blaster, because I became Blast.
Right.
And then I became the Brooklyn Blaster because the Brooklyn Brawler. So,
I got boxes of old magazines sitting here in this office. I'm gonna have to go through them and look for those at some point. So
I'll send you some pictures of the covers because that just like blew my mind. I used to run to the newsstands and buy all of them, buy stacks. Just seeing me on the same one as like Bob Backlund, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan. I'm like, it's crazy.
It was a different time period. Magazines would come out, weekly or whatever. I would even, your parents give you an allowance. I'd be at the newsstand on Friday buying. I'd spend it all on magazines. My dad's like, "Are you crazy?" I said, "I don't care, whatever." That was me. So it was such a different time period, and that was our way of finding out the news. There was no internet or any of that stuff, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and George Napolitano was one of the photographers that covered a lot of WWF, so it was awesome. And I had a very good relationship with Classy Freddie Blassie as well.
Oh, really?
So just because all the dues that I was paying, because you're in wrestling, you pay the dues. You put up the ring, you bring it to the storage unit, you unload it. It was a job, Yeah. But it was part of our tuition, kind of, But to me, it was the greatest thing working with Mick Foley and Taz and all these guys. It was so early that it was just amazing to learn, and I loved it. I loved the beatings. I loved kind of the ladder I was climbing, because even I tell kids in the school assemblies that Rocky Johnson told me when I was a kid in the ring, in the locker room, he said, just, you have 2 ears, 1 mouth. If you want to go far in this business, you'll talk half of what you listen twice as much. And so, yeah, it was
That's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So tell me about, did you ever get a chance to work like for WWF at all in the maybe in the 90s, earlier 90s?
Yeah. So what happened, and the timeline is all kind of skewed for me because I just was like, it's been so long.
Yeah.
So what happened was I did the open house for Iron Mike Sharp. Remember Iron Mike Sharp with the,
absolutely. Yep.
And he opened up his wrestling school in Brick, New Jersey. So I used to go pick up Classy Freddie Blassie at his house in Westchester and drive him to the Brick because, they were all just really old-time friends. So Freddie Blassie's actually got me, to go and interview with WWF. And, it was a very hard time for me. So what happened was I went from the Brooklyn Blaster, and then that's when the Demolition team completely broke up. It was Axe, Smash, Crush, So then Bill Eadie just starts working for Tommy D a lot. I mean, he was on every show. And then all of a sudden, Tommy D says in the locker room, remember, I'm keeping my mouth shut. I don't even know how to do a promo. I don't really talk a lot. I'm just screaming and yelling, but I don't have anything to say. And Bill Eadie says to Bill Eadie, because he saw that those shoulder pads that I wore kind of looked like Road Warriors / Demolition because of the little spikes. Right. I made those. Those were my high school football shoulder pads. So it was kind of like taking lemons and making lemonade out of it for me. So it had a story behind it that nobody knew. It's like I had such a traumatic experience getting hurt in football that I needed something. It was almost like a comfort to me. So I made these shoulder pads, started learning how to paint my face because I was a huge Kiss fan. That's where I was inspired by Gene Simmons,
Right.
Everybody thinks I kind of robbed it from Demolition. Demolition wasn't even a thing to me, I was just trying. I loved Kiss. That was it.
They didn't come out for about another 10 years after Kiss,
Right.
Demolition. So
Exactly.
at least.
So to me, it was just like, as a kid, I loved Kiss. It was the first concert I ever went to in Madison Square Garden with my mom and my brothers. And so then all of a sudden, I got away from Brooklyn Blaster and I just became Blast. So I'm trying to create this character, and we're in the locker room. Bill has already done a few shows with us. We start small talk, and he sees I'm a respectful kid. And then Tommy D says, man, why don't you guys become the new Demolition? And I'm thinking, is this guy an idiot? I mean, why would he say that? Why would that even come out of your mouth? And I go, and Bill, I'm thinking Bill's going to be like, bro, what are you, stupid? Like, and Bill turns around, he goes, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, bro, that's the time I went home and I was bawling because I couldn't believe. Now I'm watching all of the old Demolition stuff and I'm actually part of Demolition. And I'm like, so that's where it all came,
Yeah. That's actually a way different story than I could have ever imagined that happening, So
yeah. And then that's when what's his name, the photographer from Brooklyn, George Napolitano.
Jordan, yeah.
So George was taking a lot of cover shots and doing a lot of stuff for the magazines. I get Bill Apter and George were the big photographers at the time. And then George Napolitano just went into the history of Demolition from like when he was Mass Superstar and kind of went through the whole thing. And then I'm in the magazine as part of the original. So when people would contact me or get me on Facebook, they go, you're not the real blood. You're not even part of it. I'm like, you have no idea. Like, people just assume things. And I was just very humble and kind of kept it private, A
lot of people don't realize what they if they don't see it on WWF or WCW TV, that it doesn't exist. People don't realize that these guys, such as yourself, have careers outside of the mainstream. Right. You know what I mean? So, there was different versions of the Legion of Doom and the Road Warriors outside of, say, WWF and NWA and even AWA. And they even went to Japan and formed a tag team. And so there's a whole history. I mean, if you look in the Wikipedia, you're mentioned there. There's a whole timeline of all the members of Demolition, and you're definitely in there. So
yeah. No, and I love it because now it's finally like coming, and I'm posting more stuff on my Facebook.
Yeah.
Just, like magazine covers and articles. And even like the ones I sent you earlier today, that match that I'm in India, I'm wrestling the Powers of Pain. Everybody was in singles matches. So I have the Barbarian. I got his neck on the rope. I'm like, so me and him, and it's 93,000 people, bigger than WrestleMania.
Wow.
93,000 people. And I tell you, just the opportunities. And that was with Steve Ricard, promoted all of that. He did a lot of overseas. So I kind of got connected to him. And again, it was just because your personality, and if you're respectful and you keep your mouth shut, you kind of talk when you're supposed to talk, But it was Bill that taught me how to do a promo, man. And now I say I could cut a promo in a flat second. It's just awesome. But Bill goes, man, you're horrible. You're like the worst I've ever seen in my life. And so that he just showed me, because he would do a promo like when we were in Florida. Yep. He's ripping this guy. This guy's name was MC something, and he starts calling him Chubby MC. And then he's like, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then he goes, tell him, Blast. And the camera would go to me, and I go, that's right. Everything he just said, we're going to do that. And he's looking at me like, what? That's all you got to say. It was horrible. So
I do remember seeing you rather on Eddie Mansfield at IWF. That's the first time I ever saw you as a member of Demolition. I do remember, I think it was like an interview, but I think you were relatively calm in that interview.
Yeah, I was so like, because, and this is the beauty of wrestling and football. Like, even when they did that wrestlers versus football players, I mean, it's just a whole. Football players are not cut out for promos. They're not cut out. I mean, it's just not their thing. It's not what they're taught. Johnny Rodz was awesome. He put a camera in your face. But even then, I just didn't believe in this. I was doing it to be distracted so I don't try and take my life again, because I was so lost. So wrestling, I took on wrestling because it was a challenge. I didn't do it because I grew up aspiring to be a wrestler. But I like what you said earlier. about the generation of the Bruno Sammartinos. Like, there's never going to be that. And even their siblings,
Right.
it's very rare, even one of their, not siblings, but one of their kids. I
Mhm.
wrestled, Bruno Sammartino, and then I wrestled his son, David.
Really?
Night and day. Oh, yeah. I wrestled David
Yeah.
Sammartino. I wrestled Ivan Putski, and then I wrestled Scott Putski. Night and day. I wrestled the British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, and then I wrestled his son. So it's night and day. It's not, but you get some good ones that you'll get, like the Carlito, who was taught by his dad. And I wrestled in Puerto Rico too, wrestled in Mexico, so.
They're two different styles, like Carlos and Carlito. Like Carlito's more got like a, and
More
Carlos,
Americanized.
yeah, Carlos was a bleeder, a brawler, and stuff. I mean, he could wrestle if he wanted to, but he had some of the bloodiest matches with like Abdullah and stuff like that. Yeah.
And then same thing with you remember Hercules Ayala?
Yeah. Yep.
So I went over to Puerto Rico to initially wrestle for Hercules, and then I wound up wrestling with Capital Sports. So
okay,
you bounce around. So it's
yeah. Was Gorilla still involved at that point?
Gorilla, he might have been. I don't recall, but you know what I do when I did my interview with WWF, and then like the dark match was at the Manhattan Center, the first Monday Night Raw.
Oh wow!
So, and they didn't. So this is what and I know because the whole falling out with Demolition, they hated that Bill was still out there because Bill owned the name Demolition. So Vince thought he owned it, but Bill really owned it. It was just like, this is from what I knew. And so they even put a cease and desist on us while we were at a wrestling match once. It was just like boom, done, because it went to court. And so there was a whole lot of craziness. So that when Freddie Blassie set me up to go interview, there were some stipulations that I just couldn't even do. And Sergeant Slaughter was the booking agent. So I went to go see Sergeant Slaughter. And, he was in charge of putting all the new wrestlers in and that kind of stuff. So it just got a little dicey,
You mentioned the Axe owning, or Bill owning the name, or the presentation of Demolition, whatever you want to call it, the likeness, excuse me. But he didn't create it. It was Randy Colley that actually created the gimmick, I believe.
Yeah, I don't know who created it. That's why I don't know all the particulars, but all I knew is that when they put the stop in, they
the season
wrestle. Yeah, and the funny part is Tommy D was so crazy because when things just went haywire with Vince McMahon, he went and promoted a wrestling show right down the street from the office. So I'm wrestling with Bill against Jake the Snake, and so there's all these guys, and I got to find it. I have one of the old cards. We're all in the locker room, and all of a sudden somebody comes in and goes, Pat Patterson sitting in the front row with Brother Love, I think
Bruce Pritchard, Brother Love. Yep.
So Bruce Pritchard and Pat Patterson are sitting in the audience, and we're at the hotel wrestling a mile away from WWF's office. Oh man, they were straight faced, and Bill's like, "You just do what you got to do." I mean, Sid Vicious, all of us were on the show, so it was pretty intense. Tommy D went right under their nose; he didn't care.
Wow. I've heard that about him. I've heard that he booked some great shows. It's I was never able to get to that. I wasn't huge into independent wrestling at the time that he was putting on shows.
Right.
Did you go to Puerto Rico with Axe as Demolition?
No, I went. That was when I first started training as Annihilator. So So that's when I went. I wish I would have gone again as Blast because I was more polished and kind of knew the business. I was so green when I was, I was just. Once Johnny Rod signed off and he's like, okay, you're licensed because you got it fingerprinted and New York State Athletic Commission. So
right. Yeah.
I think, if I could do it all again with the wrestling business, I would have kind of took my time a little bit more and kind of polished up a little bit. So
I want to ask you about working for the Savoldis and how was that?
Oh, I loved it because again, it was just, they treated me amazing. So I know both of the two brothers were just Angelo, and they just were awesome. And they never, I heard, you work for Tommy, you work for Angelo, and you work for his brother, and you hear stories back and forth. And to me, I can't even attest to it. Never heard anybody talking about anybody else. They were always focused on just put out a good show, make sure you stick to your time, make sure you do your thing, and that's it, and be done. And then even when I worked for the Samoans, they had their own federation. So Alpha and Sika, that was amazing.
Was that when they owned WXW at the time?
WXW, yeah, man.
I used to get they used to get the TV up here, and I watched it up until the early 2000s. I think they relocated to Florida or something, and then we didn't get the TV up here anymore.
I wrestled in Allentown, Pennsylvania for them, so it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, they put on. They really cared about the product that they were putting out there for WXW on their television, and it was a lot of guys ended up. I mean, you'd see Batista on there before, and what's the other? Gene Snitsky before he was in WWF, and there's a lot of guys that were there before they ended up making it in the earlier 2000s.
Yeah, yep. And even when we went to Florida, that was kind of unique because that IWF and they were wrestling at the Universal Studios
right
before WCW went into Universal Studios.
Yep.
So they were doing their shows there. So when Bill and I went down there, we actually went with Tommy D to wrestle for another promotion. So I think that's the first time I experienced like a bridge, of two organizations. They just wanted us so bad. And that's the picture I showed you that I kind of have my makeup kind of sideways like this, It was, again, that was so new, and I was trying to really hone in my gimmick. So,
can I ask you, did you ever encounter Eddie Mansfield during that time period?
I don't know. I might have. I just don't even to me, it's just been, I was just trying to really learn the business. And that's what I feel is that when I came into the business, I even wrestled for Tom Rumsby in New Jersey.
Okay.
So he did, remember Tom Rumsby? I remember. As the executioner.
Yep.
Yeah. So he would wear the mask. And so I was wrestling. So I was really just trying to get as much wrestling in as I could. So I was wrestling constantly. I even wrestled down in Jersey City, WWWA.
Yep. I remember that.
So Tito Santana and all of them.
Yeah,
I think that was like his hometown was Jersey City. So
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. And I wrestled like not Elegante. What's his name? I don't remember. I suplexed him. The whole ring collapsed. I have it on video. The 4 posts come in. Guys are running out to the alley. They're bringing in cinder blocks, trying to pop them because he's like, what was his name? He was like Antonino Rocco's grandson or something like that. I don't know.
Drawing a blank here on that one.
I'm going to see that. I tell people it's concussions, but it's not. I just can't remember.
If you remember before we're done, send it to me, or after we're done, send it to me later because I'm really interested in that. But you got to wrestle Tito Santana in the ICW. I think it was ICW at the time, and Tito was very busy in working for the Savoldis at that time. He became a regular there after his WWF career ended, and I believe he became the champion as well for ICW. Yes. Was he the champion in that match that you wrestled him? That's up on YouTube.
I was trying to see if he was, but I don't think he was. I don't. For some reason, it might have been when he first. I'm not sure, but the guy who was so it's kind of weird. The guy who was posing as my manager outside the ring, I painted his face with the first original makeup that I did, like 1 star, and all the pieces broken because he's like, I don't want to just go out there. I kind of want to look like a tag team, And I go, all right, let's do it. So. But I can't remember if Tito was the champion of the IWF that time. Was that IWF?
It was ICW. The Savoldis ran ICW, and he was a regular.
Yeah.
Who was your who was your manager for that?
It was a young guy, my size. He was pretty big. I just can't remember, man. He kind of had like a mullet, kind of good-looking guy, but just very big. He wore the leather trench coat. Kind of reminded me of like when I was the Annihilator. I wore that long leather. So
it's a weird period for the Savoldis because it's like that. I think that was like kind of shortly like before that they closed up permanently, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And
even Lou Reardon on Long Island, I wrestled for him too.
Lou Reardon, and that's Eastern Shores Wrestling. Lou has
there was so many.
Lou was a guest here on the podcast about 2 years ago when he was Tony Capone was starting up his NAWA again, if you remember Tony.
Yes, I do remember.
And they were doing a pay-per-view, and they basically partnered up, and Lou came on here to do the promo work. And Lou's a great guy. He got his start in for the Savoldis, with the Savoldis, and I still talk to him somewhat regular. He's a great guy. He's
I like him. I
nice
still,
guy.
I think we're friends on Facebook, but I always liked him. Lou was a good guy to me. And even Tito Santana, I wrestled for him too. I mean, these names are starting to come, and I didn't even pre-plan this. But as you're bringing back this whole history, Dino Santana loved wrestling for that guy too. Really up, just primo guy, So.
It was a great era for professional wrestling, especially like
look at that. I just remembered the guy, Primo Carnera Jr.
Oh yeah, that's Oh, what the hell's his name? Is it Mike Iorio?
Mike Iorio, yeah.
I saw him last summer. Mario Mancini, right?
Yeah.
From WWF. Yeah. He runs a school here, and they run shows. And maybe it was the year before, excuse me. But Mike was a guest and came in and sat in the crowd. Him and Tony Capone and Tony Atlas were all there as basically as fans. So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. That's right. Mike is a good guy. He's a very, very nice guy.
Yeah. And even little Guido, we wrestled a lot, and Gino Caruso, who's now promoting. He's been promoting for a long time. I'm really proud of him, man. He took the bull by the horns,
The first time I encountered Gino was on ICW TV or IWCCW, I think it was at the time, and I ran. You remember Tommy Fierro? And he was, and Gino Caruso was at one of his conventions, and this was like when Tommy was real young, first starting out. Gino could not have been any nicer. He's probably one of the nicest people I've ever met, and he's still today running the ECPW, East Coast Professional Wrestling. Yep. Yeah, and
he's doing a great job.
Yeah, I mean they come here. They do here in Connecticut. I mean they're still running every weekend, and they're doing. If they come here, they'll do 3 shows a day at like the fairs for like all summer long. Seriously, yeah, he's so busy, and he brings in guys like Tom Brandy and what the hell's the other guy's name? He'll bring in Mike Kalua every now and again, So yeah, he's out there kicking ass still.
Yeah, I wrestled Mr. ECW for Tom, right? Over in
who's it, Tommy Dreamer?
Tommy Dreamer, yeah. So I have that on my YouTube, and it's the match with me and him, and that was crazy because the bottom ring rope was gone. That was one of Tommy D's shows. I don't know how it broke, but we wrestled with 2 ropes. That was it. But it was at one of those convention things where it's like a huge facility.
Right.
They just put on 3 shows a day. So I can't believe Gino's doing that. That's amazing.
Oh God, yeah. During the summer he's super busy, and then he'll come over here and run in Bridgeport, every so often. He'll run a couple times a year in the Fairfield, Bridgeport area in Connecticut. He's and then he's always in New York and New Jersey, constantly running shows. I see it pop up on my Instagram page constantly. ECPW, and they have TV. It's on YouTube now, but I guess.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, they're also going to be on the streaming app, the Savoldi streaming app that's just coming out. I was just talking to the guy that's doing it. I think he's digitizing everything. I'm not really sure what his name is. Daniel is his name, but he I guess that's the new shows are going to be featured on there. So
okay, nice.
So that's pretty cool too. So it's if you're still interested in watching, I don't know, do you still watch professional wrestling to this day?
You know what? It's funny that people ask me all the time, "Hey, you see this? You see that?" And I'm really watching like the kids of all, like Ric Flair's daughter, and just watch Snooker's son, and Bob Orton's son. Like to me, it's just mind blowing to see these kids, and I saw them when they were kids, and now they're like these big stars, like The Rock.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. Just seeing it is awesome.
Yeah. That's amazing. I love, I still watch, but I don't nearly watch as much as I used to as like a kid. I just mostly follow along with like the local indies. Like I said, I'm friends with Mario Mancini. I'm at every one of his shows that he runs.
That's cool.
Yeah, he's him and Paul Roma basically run a school together, and they then they run shows probably like once a month or
Yeah, I
once.
wrestled Paul Roma. Yeah, that's
Really?
awesome. Oh yeah, I wrestled Paul Roma. He was tagging up with hold on. Let me see. They were part of the Italian Stallions. Paul Roma
Oh,
and
Jimmy Powers. Jimmy
Jimmy
Powers.
Powers. Yeah.
Yep.
That match almost killed me because
Really?
it was literally I thought I was dead. And ask him, they'll remember. Because Bill kept asking these guys, don't put on so much oil. They were always putting on the baby oil. So we were up in Greenport, New York, the end of Long Island. So it's New Demolition versus the Italian Stallions, and I guess from all of them leaning on the rope. Well, Paul Roma, or one of them, Powers, shoots me in. I go to the rope, and man, that thing was so oily, slipped up my feet. I went out of the ring, feet up on the apron. My head smacked into the parquet floor. It was an old like roller skating ring. It was actually American Legion.
Right.
And he said, Bill told me the place went silent. They thought I was dead. And that was it.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh.
No, I know. And Bill said, man, you did great. And I go, did great what? And he goes, you finished the match. I'm like, what do you mean I finished the match? I was in the locker room. I don't remember anything from when I fell out of the ring till I got back into the locker room. It was great. I thought I was dead that night. It was great.
Wow.
And Nails. Remember Nails?
Kevin Kelly. Was it Kevin?
Yeah.
Kelly Kaniski.
Got a couple of teeth missing from the match with him. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
I heard he was a rough one to wrestle as well.
Bro. He was just knocking into me and I kept going back to the ropes, and Bill says, bro, until you give it back, I just walk square right in the mouth. Boom. Just knocked his tooth out of his mouth. Yeah, my mother was crying. She sees blood coming out of me, blood coming out of him. I mean, that guy was nuts. He was crazy. So,
didn't you end up feuding with Axe at one point?
Yes.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, when we broke. Well, it was just that coming to the end, and I think we were in somewhere in New Jersey, Bayonne, New Jersey. That's where the feud ended.
Right.
It was him and Jake the Snake, Chuck Wepner. Remember Chuck Wepner, who went 15 rounds with Ali?
Yep.
Chuck Wepner was the special guest referee. And so I was going in to do a save and wound up, the referee cut my feet out from under me. I hit Bill instead of Jake. And so that's where the feud started. Because, man, and I hit him hard too. The timing was so crazy that the ref went to go make the count. I'm running in. He chops my legs out, and I just fell. Boom. I gave a forearm right across Bill's back. I thought I actually paralyzed him. That was really bad. He rolled over. I just knew something was wrong, but he was fine. But then that feud kept going. It was good. And then we went back to the Bayonne area, and that's when Chuck Wepner gave me a shot in the gut, almost killed me. We're trying to show him how to hold back a little bit. You boxed Ali, bro. You're going to kill somebody. He goes, no, I'm good. And then he hit me right in the breadbasket. I thought I was dead. I couldn't breathe for like 20 minutes. I couldn't catch my breath. And he said he held back, which was scary in itself.
Where did you travel with Axe? Did you travel outside of like the East Coast and Florida and stuff like that? Did you go out?
No, we did most of our stuff on the East Coast. That was
yeah.
And then, but then I traveled. I went to India as part of Demolition. He went the following year.
Okay.
So it was kind of weird. They only wanted singles, and even with the Powers of Pain, they split them up and they made Warlord and Barbarian do matches. I've wrestled Kamala all over the place, down south, West Coast, East Coast. So yeah, overseas.
Right.
So it was pretty awesome. Germany. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
Let's see here. How was working with NWA New York?
And that was fun, actually. I didn't know what that was going to turn out to be because it was very, they had their little public access TV.
Right.
But it's just the guy that was doing the commentating is very, he's such a wrestling fan that he made it fun.
Right.
But, Zieg, Lord Zieg and all of them, Biggie Biggs. So, I had fun because I think most of my family was on the island and Brooklyn. So it was always an opportunity for me to come and wrestle in the Staten Island area where I played high school football. So I loved it because to me it was like I was home, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you ever work for Tommy Jeanette's Northeast Championship Wrestling? I don't know if you're familiar with him at
I'm
all.
not sure. I might have. I don't
Yeah.
remember. I don't recall. Yeah.
No, he booked
Tommy Jeanette's.
Yeah, Northeast Championship Wrestling. He would book like the fair circuit and let's see. And
He
I
might
know
have
he
been
booked,
did he do the rodeos like Cowtown Rodeo and all that?
it's very possible. It's
Yeah,
very possible.
I did wrestle at Cowtown Rodeo. Huge match. And I also did like an ice skating rink. I can't remember where that was. Not the one in Brooklyn. I
Okay.
remember that. That was Tommy D. But then we went to like a real ice skating rink where they put all of these boards on the ice, put the ring in the middle. So, but that might have been for him. So I wish I can get all of these tapes, man. That's the hardest part about my era is trying to find all the recordings because they recorded it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of YouTube. Sometimes those hidden gems will pop up randomly. You know what I mean? That's why I always go back, and I'm constantly searching and researching on YouTube for podcasts and projects I'm working on, and it's finding that obscure 80s wrestling like on there is just it does yeah, oh yeah, you know, you discover things that and they just amaze you sometimes that something exists that you did not know existed before.
Yeah. Well, I had a wrestling school out in Long Island, so at the upper room. So remember with the church, remember that wrestling that we used to do?
Which was it? I'm sorry.
PWR, Pro Wrestling Revelation.
Yep.
Revolution.
Yes.
So I did that with Johnny Rods and Bobby Rydell.
Yes.
Bobby Rydell was always like with Ted DiBiase and them, Jimmy Hart. So we had a wrestling school there. So we trained the kids and we did a wrestling show. Part of their training was doing a wrestling event every one Friday night a month. So a lot of good wrestling. The kids were learning. We brought in guys from what is that? The mixed martial arts that you see all the time on TV. UFC. We brought in one of those guys, and they did like some ring exercises, mat drills. So it was awesome because we put the ring up in the church. Then even the PWA with Ted DiBiase.
Right.
So he came and put on a huge show where we had brought back the Rockers, with Shawn Michaels and I might be able to get my hand on that stuff. That was incredible. Where they did the whole thing of the barbershop again and put them through the glass.
Right.
So they redid all of that. It was pretty insane. But Doink the Clown and what's her name? She Luna Vachon.
Yep, Luna.
She was on that. I was actually in the ESPN magazine with her. So
okay. Oh wow.
Yeah. ESPN actually came to the church and covered that event. There were like 2,800 people packed into the sanctuary, the stage up on the ring. Pretty Shawn Michaels, Ted DiBiase. I mean, the list just went on and on and on. And I think the big show was supposed to be there, but he didn't come. So they had Kane was there. So Kane wrestled with us. Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty incredible night.
That sounds like an amazing show.
Man, that was great. And even when I wrestled in the Taj Mahal, that was a card and a half. But I got to send you all these things. I got to find them. Now you give me.
Oh, yeah.
And
you got my got my brain working here. I'm interested in seeing all this stuff.
The Taj Mahal was incredible. That was one of my favorites. I think it was me and Bill. So it was the new Demolition against the Rock and Roll, not the Rock and Roll Express. It was something else, but it was two guys kind of looked like the Rock and Roll Express. Could have been, but Sid Vicious was on it. Tito Santana was on it. I mean, it was just packed. There might have been 8 or 10 matches, and it was packed. Bushwhackers. Tommy D had them a lot, so we were always wrestling against the Bushwhackers. So,
what about working with SD Jones?
Oh, I loved him.
Yeah,
he was awesome. Junkyard Dog, SD Jones. Those guys were awesome. So
let's see here. I'm trying to think here what I got here. Hang on 1 second. Just 1 second. Sorry about that. Hang on. Oh, yeah. You worked with Big Bully Busick and Chris Walker.
Wow. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, that's I'm going back 1994. Chris Walker was one of those guys I thought had that look to become a huge star. Yeah. And all the potential, and then he just like faded into obscurity, it looks.
I don't even know what happened. It's like
Yeah.
he fell off that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Don't understand, but yeah, I don't
Maybe
know what happened to him.
No.
Do you remember the original Undertakers that Vince bought the gimmick from?
From ICW, they were with what's his name? Were they with Tony Rumble, right?
Tony Rumble. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Then they I think they changed their, what the hell was the name? Oh, they ended up changing them to Double Trouble. They brought him
Double
into
Trouble. Yeah.
were they the
Yep.
$1 Billion Babies? That's not the same tag name, right?
I don't think so. But I do
No.
remember. But I remember them distinctly because we couldn't believe they sold the name, and then look what it became. You know.
Well, it's funny because I used to read about them in magazines and watch them on IWCCW TV, and then all of a sudden, The Undertaker's on TV randomly, and then it was just like, and then you hear that those guys just, as a kid, you know, I didn't really know all that stuff behind the scenes stuff would happen,
Right.
and then you know, years later, I found out exactly what happened to them. So
yeah,
in that gimmick.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah,
Yep.
crazy.
So. Do you have any other? You were former New York heavyweight champion.
Oh yeah,
So-
I mean, with Tommy, you're talking about, or
Yeah, it says it was here, the NWA New York heavyweight title.
NWA New York. Yeah, that was on the one on Staten Island.
Yeah. Do you want to tell me about winning that title and how you got there?
Oh yeah, I mean that was it was good because they had Grand Vizier, who was kind of like the new Grand Wizard, you know, which played a
Right.
great. Remember the Grand Wizard? So the
Yeah.
Vizier over on Staten Island, he was, and that's what I'm saying. Those guys really worked hard, and I enjoyed working with them. But you know, just the matches were good. They were just clean. And you know, even the turn of events, you know, throwing the belt, one person's supposed to get hit with it, the other guy can't. You know, everything was just really amazing. So you know, and I think me and Biggie Biggs, which was their champion, which I liked because he kind of looked like a regular street guy, like just a regular
Right.
Joe, you know. But he did know how to cut a promo, and he was really good. You know, I enjoyed working with them. So yeah, when they said, yeah, we're gonna do this and that, and you know, are you in with it? And I said, come on, let's just give them all we got. One thing to me is like if you left there questioning, you know, you never left questioning with me. I hit hard, and I didn't hit hard and hurt, but I didn't want people walking out of there with any questions whatsoever. So I would tell all my opponents, anybody I wrestled with, I'm like, lay it into me, man. I'm okay. Just don't potato me. You know what I mean? Like, because I lost a couple of teeth from nails, you know, like, but let's just give them everything we got. But the matches were great. The storylines were great. And then they had that Access TV. So I would go on and cut promos. Even some of the guys today still make jokes. Who's Carmine? Because my mom would come to the show and she would say, you know, instead of calling me Blast,
Right.
she's like, Carmine. And I literally yelled top of my lungs to my mother, who's Carmine? She's turned around. What? She ran the other way. So these guys from Staten Island, they would do that on the show. Who's Carmine? You know, I'm like, all right. So, you know, they just got to rib you all the time. So,
Oh yeah.
but I loved it. I really got to enjoy the business for what it was, and just learning and knowing how to work the crowd was, to me, is precious, you know?
Yeah.
So,
It's very important to get the fans involved in the product and your match and your brand, because it plays a lot into how things could go.
yeah. And I think even like James Harris, you know, the Kamala, he didn't get the credit. He was amazing to teach and kind of mentor people. He mentored me for a long time when we went to India and then started traveling. I wrestled him in so many places, and he was just so much fun. I even put on a fundraising event in Staten Island, the Heart of the Champion, where I brought Booker T in, and I brought in, you know, just a bunch of guys doing a fundraiser for one of my ex-teammates at the high school I played football for. So just having that kind of, you know, bringing Jimmy Snuka, I wrestled with him in the Boys and Girls Club in Vineland, New Jersey, had him wrestle one of my students, kind of made my student's life, you know, just like, what do you mean? I'm going to wrestle Snuka? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I didn't bring him in to wrestle me. I wrestled them 20 times, you know? So just seeing them light up, learning the business, and really getting some really good teaching. So to me, that's why I like watching the kids of all of these older wrestlers. So
Right. Yep. I'm just going to ask you a few more questions, and then
yeah,
we'll move on. You wrestled. Do you still keep in touch with Bill at all today these days?
you know, that's a really good question. First time anybody ever asked me that. honestly.
Really?
But I kind of stepped aside when he reconnected with Barry Darso. I
Okay.
kind of, and my wife always tells me you should call him. You should just, because I loved him like a dad. I really did. Like, to me, and it was nothing, no fallout, no. Even when we split up the new Demolition, it wasn't that he had plans to go to, and do all of these things, but Barry came back into his life. They patched their relationship up, and I just knew the right thing to do is just, to me, I don't chase people, and I don't try and do things for popular. I can go to all these Comic Cons, and people have invited me and said, "Hey, can you do autograph signings?" And to me, I'm just like, I had my time, and it's good, but I don't ever want to get in the way of what Bill and it's just the way I was raised. So yeah, I'll do these. I'll do interviews, but
Right.
call it what it is. I have a ministry now, so to me, I'm doing more outreach events all over the country, and that's like my main focus is that. So,
Right.
yeah,
I'm going to get to that in just a second.
yeah, no problem.
Before we wrap it up, I want to ask you about that. But you've had some encounters with Chris Michaels as well. Bill Pierce.
Chris Michaels.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about him
man.
a little bit. That guy is, I consider him a legend. So
Chris, listen, you want to talk about see what I failed in creativity? He was overflowing. Him and what's his name, Demi Intimento,
yes,
Phil.
Yep.
Phil. Oh, watching them do the bums was the best gimmicks I've ever seen. I didn't think they could pull it off. These guys were just so brilliant. But and even watching Mondo Clean and watching that on WWF was awesome. But Chris Michaels, I just think he's just one of a kind. He really is. I loved working with him. The technical abilities he had, high flying, risk taker. But also, I think what I really loved about Chris Michaels is he always made sure didn't hurt somebody. He made sure that when he applied a move, he was always about the technical part of how we're going to keep you from getting hurt. So,
right.
To me, just shines, but he can turn it on in a flat second. I believe he turns it on when he's driving his car. I think he just loves the business so much. So, but we had some great matches with him too.
Yeah, we were in talks to have him on here, but it never materialized, and I want to try to reach back out to him and try to get him on here, because the guy's been around forever,
Yeah,
he's
and
been around.
One of my favorite people that I ever wrestled, who was big on the independent circuit, is the Kodiak Bear, Tom.
I was going to ask you about him as well. So,
man, another guy, him, Gino. These are guys. They're just class acts. They really are, and I'm not saying that because these are just who. This is why I wound up falling in love with the business. Because when you're in locker rooms with these guys, and you see the Snookers, and you see the Kevin Sullivans, and the Kamalas, and the Jake the Snakes, and you're sitting next to them, trading stories, and you're hearing all of these matches that they've had, and you're just thinking like, we were the lucky guys, That's what I really feel. So, what I've received from pro wrestling and being on the road, can't even put a value to it. So,
right. This is probably going to be a weird one, because I never knew that you encountered this guy or wrestled him, and this was probably the tail end of his career, and he only had a brief few years in the business. But Lance Von Erich.
Oh, Lance Von Erich, my man.
Yes,
we were in India together, and he another good guy. Like I couldn't even, and he fell in love with a girl in India, and I think is that where he is right now?
I think it's South Africa.
So when he went to India, we all went on this. I mean, we had the giant Canadian. He was, just so many of us were on that trip. He saw a girl at the check-in counter at the hotel, and we start ribbing on him because we're like, "You're out of your mind." We thought he just wanted to, get with her.
Yeah.
And he's like, "No." I'm like, feel, and we're going, okay. But by the end of the tour, we did so many cities. We ended up back at that hotel. He asked the girl if she can go on a date with him. She said, "You can, but I got to invite my family, the whole family." The father said, "You want to date my daughter? Then you got to live here." And he never went back with us. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then I heard that he bought gyms. He bought little gyms in India and kind of converted them into real gyms, brought in real equipment, and the guy was in sick shape. I have a lot of video, a lot of the newspaper clippings, and he's right on the front cover. He's just chiseled, Lance Von Erich,
I don't think he gets enough credit whatsoever. I think he was I think it took him a little while to grow into being a great wrestler, but he
Yeah.
got there. And have you read his biography?
No,
It
I
came out,
haven't.
I think, 2 years ago. My friend Vinny Barry, I'm friends with the author. This is a tremendous book, I'm telling you. My
Really?
Vinny helped him write his book. I guess Lance thought he was crazy for wanting to write a book on him. Thought that nobody would have any interest in it. And this is where I ended up meeting Vinny because he contacted me to trying to promote his book, and he and I became very good friends. And the book is amazing. I'm telling you, if you find it on Amazon or whatnot, or
I'm
you go
just going to
to
look it up for sure.
yeah, go to wrestleville.com, you can buy it directly from him, and I think there might be autographed copies still available.
Wrestleville, I
But
got to write that down. Oh, you'll
yeah,
send. Can you send that to me?
yeah, I
Then
will
I'm
absolutely. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, and even
Wrestleville.com.
the Mongolian Waller. You ever got to meet him?
No, I never did.
He was with us in India too. Another class act. Like me, him, and Kamala. Me, Mongolian Waller, and Kamala were like the Three Stooges. We were everywhere. We trying to get into the little cars that the guys driving, holding our luggage out the side. It was insane. It was like we had the greatest. That was the greatest wrestling tour I think I have ever been on in my life.
Wow.
So, but the Mongolian Waller, you got to look him up.
No,
I don't even know if he's still around.
I remember him, but I never, encountered them as a
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Yep. So,
During the era that we're talking about, that you were, very prominent in, did you ever get a chance to work for Herb Abrams?
Herb Abrams, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So again, that was a short. I was just bouncing around. So,
Yep.
but I remember very distinctly. Yes. Is he still around?
No, he passed away.
Oh, see, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Probably 1995, I think.
Wow.
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't tell the story here, but it's a very well-known story. You can look it up. It's quite
okay. I'll have to look it up.
They've done that show. If you've seen the show Dark Side of the Ring, they've done a whole episode on him.
Oh,
So
okay. Yeah, I have to check that out.
Yeah. And so I want to thank you for coming on, and I want you to why don't we talk about what you were up to today?
Yeah, I mean, so like before, I kind of retired in 2011, but in 2002, I went through 3 suicide attempts, in my lifetime. So there was a very dark side to my life, and it wasn't from wrestling; it was from actual what I experienced in high school, and it just was something that I just could never get. I loved football that much. Again, that's why
Right.
I had to learn the wrestling business. But then in 2002, I gave my life to the Lord. I got at Upper Room. That's when I met Bobby Rydell and Johnny Over. The pastor asked me if we would do a wrestling ministry. I said, "You got to be kidding me." So I called and I got a wrestling ring. They bought a ring, and we were doing all those outreaches. We had a free wrestling school. But then I kind of left Indiana in 2009, moved to Indianapolis, and kind of fell into what I was really called to do, which is I'm out there as an evangelist, ministering to people, but actually meeting people on the streets, meeting them, drug dealers, gangbangers. That's our ministry is called Hitting the Pavement. So that's what we're doing. We're hitting the pavement, and I have these shirts. Well, not this. This is like a wrestling shirt that my nephew kind of hand drew for me, but I have shirts that says "Wrestling for Souls," and that's it. So I'm out there speaking in schools, just trying to get kids. In the world we live in is so crazy.
Right.
Kids are taking their lives, and so it's an amazing platform that I bring the wrestling, I bring the belts, show them, but then I tell them they need to champion their life. So the message that I put out there, and now I'm heading back to New York. My wife and I are gonna probably take up a residence in New York as well with our ministry, because we're out there with the New York City Police Department. We're really trying to reach the gangs, because the gangs are pulling all these kids in, and the kids are falling into these traps, and they're overdosing, they're killing. Just 2 days ago in New York City, 2 kids got shot right outside their high school. I mean, it's just a war zone. So that's what I do. I spend my whole life out there. The rest of my days, as long as I have, go out there and just ministering and trying to get people out of those lifestyles and get them straight, so it's pretty awesome.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
truly amazing. Well, how can they find the information based on there? And I'll definitely put a link in the description of this episode so people
Awesome.
can
Yeah.
find it as
Well,
well.
our
So,
our website is Hitting the Pavement, so Pavement, so hittingthepavement.com.
yeah.
They could go to TikTok. We have wrestling. Hitting the Pavement is our TikTok handle as well. So we do TikTok videos. We're on Facebook, Hitting the Pavement. And even if they went to wrestlingforsouls.com, it'll redirect to Hitting the Pavement. So
Okay.
we're easy to find. You know, my wife and I, we have a joint Instagram page. So it's Carmine Jules, which is her name, Carmine Jules Azzato. So a lot of people find us there, you know. So those are the 3 ways you can find us, or 4 ways. So yeah.
I want to thank you very much for joining me. This was a blast. I had a fun time talking to you and talking a great era of professional wrestling.
Man,
It's not, that's not WWF. So.
Yes. Listen, I love it. And I'm gonna send you a lot of stuff, and you could kind of I have the pictures. There, even some of them are on my Facebook page. So I've got all the, you know, I'll get you some good stuff, because you'll look at the cards, you'll be like, whoa, that's never seen that before. Even the PWA one, seeing Doink the Clown and all these guys, and it was just an incredible era that I got to be a part of. So
that's amazing. I'm gonna fully admit I'm a complete mark for that stuff. So.
My mother was a mark. My mother would say, if you can get me to meet Bret the Hitman Hart, and then I got her to meet him, she was like, if you can get me to meet the Undertaker, I got her to meet. It was just like, those were her 2 favorites. So
that's amazing. I did get to meet Bret on a couple different occasions. Probably one of the nicest guys I've ever encountered. You know, very nice guy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I met Owen too. Owen was a sweetheart, man. Just great. And the Guerreros. I wrestled in Mexico, you know, so it's just getting to meet families that are so engrafted in wrestling was an honor. So
yeah. Let's just clear up one thing that's, I guess, a myth in your career, wrapping up your career. You probably know where I'm going with this, but you are not the Gravedigger.
No, I am not the Gravedigger, but I am the original Blast, because there has been many, but I'm number 1. I created the name, and I'm number 1 in Blast. I think what happened, how the Blast thing, because when Tommy DX Bill, if he and I would be the new Demolition, I just think Axe and Blast became so easy to say. Right. So when Bill went to other countries, or I saw one guy was from Canada, just the name Blast was easier. And I never knew that was happening, to be honest with you. Never knew there was another Blast. But safe to say, I'm the original. So
there you go.
I also say I'm the best looking of all of them. So that's another discussion for now.
Well, thank you very much. This was a blast. No pun intended.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, man. I appreciate you. And and if anybody wants one of these Blast shirts, they can get them on my website. They're for sale on the website. So just go to hittingthepavement.com and you go to the shop, and the shirts are available. All sizes. Even if you're a big guy, 4XLT we go up to. So you get any size you want.
Yep. There you go. There you go.
Right.
All right.
You guys take care.